Hello, welcome to the Senior Rehab Project, the podcast for the community of rehab clinicians working to advance care for older adults. I'm your host, Nicole, and this is the State of the SNF. Today's episode, we're going to discuss the timed up and go. So this will be the second in the series about functional testing in the SNF and how to apply functional testing and why we should be using functional testing in our evals. I just want to take a minute to say that I am very excited about CSM coming up and the chance to meet people, and I really hope I get to see a bunch of you there. Troy's going to be there with me, Erin's going to be there with me, and we're all really looking forward to the chance to get to meet our listeners and interact with you guys, find out what your thoughts are and, where you want to go with things. So anyway, on to our show. What I find very interesting about the TUG is it came from a very humble start, and I feel like it kind of has changed with our profession also. We came from a certificate program, and now we're at a doctorate. So the TUG actually started in 1986. It was called the Get Up and Go. And this was scored on a scale of 1 to 5, and it was based on the observer's perception of fall risk. So this was Matthias et al. And like I said, it was just the perception of the observer. There was absolutely nothing standardized about it. They got up from the chair, they walked, they came around and sat down, and you said how much of a risk you thought they were at for falling. That was it. That all changed in 1991. We had two people. I'm going to mess up these last names, and I apologize. But Podsidaldo and Richard, and they quantified the test. They decided to use timing, and their timing was from the start, when you say go, until the patient was back in the chair, and there is some conflict. Now, most of it is accepted to be with their back touching the back of the chair, but if you do look in the research, much like the 5 times sit to stand, there is a little bit of play if it's the buttocks or the back touching the chair. 9 times out of 10, you're going to see it, or at least in my impression, I see it mostly as the back of the patient touches the back of the chair. So they're seated fully in the chair. It's not just that second that their buttocks touches. So I'm sure we can have a nice conversation about that. I actually really loved how we had a conversation about the timing for the 5 times sit to stand in the group. So I look forward to hearing from you guys about this. Anyway, Podsidaldo and Richard found that it correlated with the Berg, with gait speed analysis, and the Barthel, and that it had a reliable intra and inter-rater levels. So this is really good. What else was good about it was that it really needed no significant further education about how to do it. It didn't take up a lot of space, and it didn't need a lot of fancy equipment, which is always great because some of us are working really bare-boned. So all you need is a chair, a way to time it, and something to write it all down with, and something to mark where the test ends. And we'll go over that at the end. Now, these studies are in 1991, 1986, but the TUG is still being used to this day. I mean, not just in the clinics, but it's also being used for correlation in research and in testing. So I actually found 2 tests, and forgive me, I seem to be a little bit stuffy tonight. I found 2 tests that are coming out or come out in 2019 in which they're used. So I found a proposal for a study they're calling Preventing Falls Among Older Fallers. It's a study protocol for a 2-phase pilot study of a multi-component Live Life program. I'm not going to go too much into the LIFE program. It is going to be explored by the prereqs crew coming up. I see it on the list. So that's a really exciting intervention study. So what this study is looking to do is build on that. It's going to adapt and expand the lifestyle intervention functional exercise program into a more multi-component program addressing intrinsic and extrinsic fall. So it's going to look at why we're falling. That is something that is coming up, and it does use the TUG. It's also part of a functional battery in the study for interval aerobic training program. And it was also, they found a correlation between, this is a little bit out there, but the elasticity of the rectus femoris and the TUG. And the elasticity of the rectus femoris affects dynamic balance and walking ability in older women. So that is Saito et al. And the title of that is Age-Related Changes in Muscle Elasticity and Thickness of the Lower Extremities are Associated with Physical Functions Among Community-Dwelling Older Women. That is in Geriatrics and Gerontology International, and the link for that will most definitely be included in the show notes. Another thing that I love about the tug is its evolution in use of or exploration of Parkinson's. There is actually a study from 2010 in the Journal of Neurological Neurosurgery Psychiatry. The instrumented timed up and go test, potential outcome measure for disease modifying therapies in Parkinson's disease. And they're suggesting an instrumented timed up and go is going to be a little more functional for them than the traditional. And I just love seeing all the adaptations of it and how it's being applied. So this is another test that I use frequently. It's easy setup. You can do it almost anywhere. You almost always have the tools that you need for it. So let's talk about how to actually perform the test now. All right, so what do we need for this? We need a standard armchair, any assistive device the patient normally uses, regular footwear that they would normally use, and you need something to mark a line that is 3 meters or 9.8 feet away, and something to time with. So that's all you need. So you set up your patient's chair, you have the patient sit in it, you mark off an object. I've seen cones used, I've seen tape used on the floor, 3 meters, 9.8 feet away. So you're going to tell the patient, sit in the chair and place their back against the chair and rest their arms on the chair arms. They should not be on the assistive device, which I think we all know that you don't have your hands on the assistive device to pull yourself up. So I feel like that's kind of redundant, but I'll tell you guys anyway. And then when you're ready, you say go. The stopwatch begins when you say go. The timing ends when their back touches the back of the chair. So they sit, their back touches the back of the chair, test is over. Now, when Paz, Cialdo, and Richardson standardized the test in 1991, they also built in the idea that you let the patient have a primary trial that you time but do not count against them. So they get an idea of what's going on, and you can get a little bit of idea of what's going on. So keep that in mind. There is a trial built in that you don't actually count against the patient for their times. Now here's where things get a little bit sticky for us in the SNF or even in some home care. The test is not supposed to include any hands-on assistance. They're also not allowed to sit down, although they can stop and rest. I have had someone take the test when they were contact guard. So again, as we go back to our conversation about the 5 times sit to stand, any modification means that the test is no longer able to be scored normatively against other people of their age. So just keep that in mind. But again, the goal is always completion on their own. So if I have someone who is, and they're never more than a contact guard, but if I have someone who's a contact guard, I trial it, and then in a couple days, I do it again without the contact guard so that I can see, how I modified, and it's noted that I modified. I can then talk about how I standardized it, and then I can use that standardized trial as the comparison for their discharge level. So to wrap up, the TUG is a simple to administer test that doesn't require a lot of things that we wouldn't normally find in the clinic or in a home. Our phones are doing their timing for us now. Most of us, if we don't have the phone on us, we have watches that do the timing. You just need to make sure that you're able to measure the distance. That might be something to think about. How are you going to be able to mark off your distances? Could be a consideration. In the rehab gym, there's often tools that you can use. Could be a little trickier in the home, but I know that some of the home care therapists are in fact bringing the measuring devices with them. So always a workaround. So not only is it easy to learn, easy to implement, but it's also consistently being proven to be reliable, including in research that's being used up to this date. So I hope you guys have another tool in your toolbox. I hope that you are starting to understand why we should be using these tools and how it helps us see what an individual needs and work from there and really choose a program and design a program that helps our patients meet their goals personalized instead of just kind of an out-of-the-box thing. So thank you so much for listening to the Senior Rehab Project. If you've gained from this episode, please consider supporting our work. You can become a patron through Patreon, a service that allows people like you to support people like us. You can give as little as $1 a month or become a game changer for $8.99 a month, where you'll get an awesome Redefined Old mug and access to all the cool stuff that we're working on for 2019, including early access to some of the interviews and information that we're going to have. So please go to seniorrehabproject.com to learn more and find the show notes for this episode. And please, if you're going to be at CSM, come say hi. We're really looking forward to it. We're going to organize a little get-together for everybody. And until then, and if you're not going to CSM, stay funky.